So it's interesting to think when we look at this, for example, height median split that we've been looking at, and we have categories like short and tall. Is that really how we usually talk about height when we talk about somebody? If I asked, how tall are you or what height are you? Would you respond, I'm short or I'm tall? Usually we don't answer that way. Like you would say, I'm 5'8" or I'm 6'1". We would use a more precise measurement than I'm short or I'm tall, right? So keep in mind, short and tall, those are categorical variables. So categories, you're in one or you're in the other. But height is not naturally a categorical variable. It's naturally a continuous variable. We talk about it in terms of the range of values that somebody could be. And generally in the US, we talk about it in terms of inches. How many inches tall are you? And we convert it to feet and inches, right? So it seems a little silly that we would be looking at height as as a categorical. I don't know why this shifted, but as a categorical variable, when really in reality it's not a categorical variable, it's a continuous variable. So we are going to transition into using scatter plots to plot two continuous variables against each other, right? So we'll have two variables, and the one that's listed down here, which we usually think of as the independent variable, this is going to be some range of numbers. We'll plot with a continuous variable. And then the dv, which we generally put on the y-axis, is also going to be a continuous variable where it has a range of values, right? So if we do that, so going back to our data, just to refresh how we got that other scatter plot, although it's not a very good scatter plot, we were looking at thumb length as correlating. Let me just go back and talk you through what I'm just doing. So I went to regression, and then under the classical menu, the drop down, select correlation. And then we were looking at our two variables were thumb length in millimeters. So move that to the right in the variables box. And the other one was height median split. So I moved that over to the box as well. You'll notice it doesn't give me what I want. It doesn't give me the scatter plot. I'm actually just going to untick. I don't really need that information. What I really want is down here under plots. I want to click scatter plots. And it kind of spits it out a little funky, but we can see we get that scatter plot here. Now, if we want to look not at this median split, making these kind of false categories of ways that we don't really talk about height, short and tall. So I'm going to go up here to my analysis drop-down menu, and there's a little green plus for me. And if I hover over it, it says duplicate this analysis. So rather than having to go back through regression, correlation, and do it over, I'm just going to click this little green button and it's going to give me a new one without replacing. If I move things around, it's not going to replace the other one that I was working on. So in this case, I want to take that categorical variable, height median split, and swap it out with height in inches. Right? We have everybody's height in inch, so why should we not just be more precise? Why not just use all the numbers that we actually have? Right? So I moved that one in instead. So we're looking at thumb length versus height in inches. Height in inches is on our independent variable, is on our x-axis. Thumb length is on our y-axis, the dependent variable in this case. And it's a little small here, but we get that scatter plot, right? So we can see there's a range of numbers on the x-axis and a range of numbers on the y-axis, and we no longer have these like weird lines. We can actually see all of the points displayed, right? So I could see this particular person has a very short thumb, but I mean, maybe about 5'3", 63 inches, but they have a particularly short thumb for some reason, right? I can see this person up here, they are, looks like maybe around 5'7", 5'8", and they have a really, really long thumb. This other person also has a really long thumb, but they're a little taller. Looks like they're maybe about 6 foot. So each of these dots that we see is representing one person's both thumb length and height. So we get two pieces of information from that one dot, and both of those pieces of information are about continuous variables in this case. So we can see this is what a scatter plot with two continuous variables looks like, because it's not just categories, we got numbers all in between, right? From short to tall and from short thumbs up to tall thumbs or long thumbs. Okay. So that's how we get it in JASP. And now on the figure, which I've just copy and pasted it in for you. So on this figure, we want to identify all the data points from people who are approximately 59 inches tall. So if I want to find the people who are 59 inches tall, you have to think, am I going to identify 59 on this or 59 down here? So remember, these numbers correspond to thumb length. We're not asking about the length of someone's thumb. We're saying approximately 59 inches tall. We're talking about height. And height is our variable that's going this way, right? So really, this is height down here. So I want to look at these numbers and find where are the people who are about 59 inches tall. It's a little hard to see, right? They're all kind of squished together. But if I were to kind of estimate, 59 is going to be, I don't know, somewhere around here. So if I go up, looks like maybe this person. Looks like maybe someone right here. And I can't see anyone else, but it looks like those are people who are 59 inches tall. So what do we kind of notice about their thumbs? They seem to be on the lower end down here between 40 and 50-ish, right? So then what would we predict if we knew the person coming into the class was 59 inches tall? What would you predict for their thumb length? Do you think you could get more specific than just the overall mean or the mean of the short people, right? This helps us to kind of really narrow in on, okay, if I have this specific information about this person, then what am I going to predict for their thumb length? Well, based on what we're going to be talking about soon, looks like maybe I would estimate, if I'm going based on that line, around 50. But you may also think, well, there's one that's kind of a lot lower, so maybe you're going to go a little bit more in between these. Maybe you would say like 48-ish, right? So what would you choose? Doesn't have to be the same as mine, but something, I'm guessing somewhere around the 48 to 50 millimeter range would probably be about my guess. I would guess somewhere right in there for somebody about that tall. Then I want you to do the same thing for 64 inches. So find where 64 inches lies, and this one is again hard because they're all kind of on top of each other. But try to look through, where are those people with 60 who are 64 inches tall, and then what would you estimate or predict for a person who came into the class who was 64 inches tall? Would it be the same guess as what you had for the people who were 59 inches? Would it be the same guess as you have for somebody who's like over 6 foot, who's up here? Or how would you adjust your prediction based on what you know about that person's height? Okay, and then using that idea, I want you to go ahead and answer number 8 by thinking about, what is this relationship that we see? We see shorter people to the left, taller people to the right, people with shorter thumbs down low, and people with longer thumbs up high. Can you make some sort of kind of conclusion about, like, if, the longer someone's height is, the what about their thumb? What would you guess? Shorter or longer? or the taller someone is, what would you predict about their thumb length? And then this very last question, number 9, I just want you to take a look through. There are all sorts of variables in this data set that we didn't talk about, like hair length, the different fingers besides the thumb, and sex, right? So you can think about male versus female, or which major, which class they're in, psychology, sociology, anthropology. So think about the different variables we have in this data set, and then just kind of think about, come up with, could you have any predictions about relationships between a couple of variables? Like, for example, I might predict that females tend to have longer hair lengths, right? Or males tend to have higher height, or people who have short pinky fingers, does that relate to their hair length in some way, right? So just thinking about these variables, there's no right or wrong answer. I just want you to start thinking about those relationships, because that's really where we're moving in next. Is we'll be looking at scatter plots, and then the actual statistical analyses that we use that correspond with our scatter plots, which are correlation and regression, and using those analyses, using those tools to try to help us answer some questions about two continuous variables and how they relate to each other. Okay, so hope that helped.